Welcome to Scope Shift. I'm excited for today's conversation with Kyle Manning, founder of On Point Marketing and co-founder of Zenned Kombucha. So excited to get into that with Kyle. He's got both the agency service business and then also a product business. So he is a skilled web designer, digital marketer, and product developer. He was named one of the top 100 marketing and advertising leaders at the Marsum conference. So we know Kyle really understands the value of high quality content. Kyle, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I'm excited to jump into some stuff and yeah.
I am too. I am too. We were talking a little bit before we press record. You have a really interesting and unique origin story. So I stopped you and said, we got to tell this story on the air. So you were telling me you had graduated, looking at business school. It was the summer before that would start. Let me just tee that up for you. Take the story right from there.
Sure. So I actually was after the first 2 years. I hadn't graduated. I was looking into specializing into
Okay.
going from the general ed into the business specific classes. At that point, I had to, look at boosting up my grades, retaking a couple of classes. It was really competitive at MSU, which led me to that summer of sort of looking at, okay, I'm going to have to, fund these classes again. What can I do to start bringing in some extra money? And what I landed on was social media content for local businesses, like through graphic design and just starting with designs like graphics, no video or anything at that point.
Sorry to interrupt
Um,
you, Kyle. I'm going to ask you just real quick, just to let everybody know what time frame are we talking here?
This was 2017, the summer of 2017. I started doing designs for local businesses, social, graphic design. There wasn't a Canva out yet. The barriers to entry were a little bit higher than they are now. It wasn't very high because I was a guy with a laptop and a decent enough design touch that people could see what I was doing and thought that they would be able to have their business represented well through the creative that I was doing. I realized I was not the world's most talented graphic designer by any means, but I was doing a good job. I had a client that started making this reality in terms of like, okay, this is not just a project, this is an ongoing thing. We've got a good relationship here, and we were seeing good results right off the bat. So we were adding value immediately. They were happy. It was a floral trade association, statewide at the time, now regional and one of the largest in the nation, apart from California. But they hired us in to do their social, and they have an annual convention each year. It's one of their big revenue drivers. And at the point where it became from me being a glorified freelancer with a logo for my agency and stuff to an actual business was when we engaged with them on creating an event specific website, and just having a place where it wasn't muddying the waters too much with their members, and then the convention on a sub page. It was just clear promotion of the events, and they had 25% increase in ticket sales of attendees and then 10 to 15% increase in sponsorship funding or sponsorship partners. So that was a really busy, that was 2019, I think that was. So about 2 years later, after doing a few sets of a lot of projects and having a couple ongoing clients. But when we did that site, it was just me designing, pushing it to development, cutting my teeth. I had friends in the space and they were able to give me some pointers, so I wasn't totally green on it, and hence having some decent results. Have to give thanks for that advice. I was working till like midnight that in developing that website regularly. It was my learning curve as well, and I realized, okay, I'm spinning too many plates here. One of them's going to fall if I can't get someone on board. So I hired in a designer and a videographer to help fulfill the deliverables, and then also being able to branch out more into the web design space. And after 2 years, I was getting a bit burnt out, like of just trying to reframe the same messaging in a new visual manner.
Mhm.
Is tiring. And I think that's the same for anyone, regardless of your talent of design. If you have the same message to push over and over and over again, you get fatigued. There's only so many
Yeah.
ways that one person can put that. So this is jumping ahead a bit, but that's something that really stuck in core to me. And we've tried to diversify who's doing design, so people don't just get burnt out of doing one thing
Yeah.
repetitively, or one
I
client, one project repetitively. You lose your spark with it a bit. Once we hit 2019, it was starting to become an actual agency with a couple people helping here and there. It wasn't just me as a glorified freelancer anymore. I was starting to see, if I have people help with deliverables, there's room for growth. We can take on more work. The web design development started off that partnership. We tried SEO, but it wasn't so much a strong point. It complements social really well. We usually work with either in-house SEO or an agency. We collaborate with the SEO plans. I have an understanding of it. I don't understand all of the ways to optimize articles and things like that. But I learned, in terms of the content creation flow, that whatever you're doing for SEO is if you're not tying that into your social, you're missing a huge trick for people. And at that time, before 2020, this was like it was not so common that people understood how easy it was to take one long form piece of content in writing, and now it's video form, like, within a podcast, and you clip this up and all of that. But back then, taking that and creating social posts without having to, drum up a whole new narrative and have this really long process of coming up with the content, we were able to help, take some of that time off of people's plate of coming up with whatever for social and for SEO. We kind of combine that, and that's a common approach. A lot of people miss out on that. Most of the people we work with already have a grasp on that, and they're looking to elevate the level of that
Mhm.
content and have it resonate deeper. So yeah, that was my start into OnPoint and how we came from me as, a freelancer to an agency owner.
It's a great story. And I think a lot of people, and maybe it's even by attention, so I don't want to say they get stuck, but there are people who they just want to be that, to use your phrase, glorified freelancer, right? They're really just looking to have a couple of clients, making enough money, a lifestyle business. But then there are those of us like, all right, let's take this to the next level. It seems like you from the beginning knew, all right, I want to try and take this as far as I can. Was it beneficial? It seems like it might have been a nice stroke of luck, but I'm assuming here to have that trade association be like the first client that really things clicked with. Were they able to connect you with their members? Were you able to do a lot of work for their membership?
Yeah, not so much their members, but their partners. Our focus with OnPoint is B2B services. And that's what they are. They provide education and resources to
Mhm.
florists. But their members are all florists, and they have gorgeous floral arrangements. They have people in-house who can take a picture. And from a social perspective, it's not so valuable. You got to sell a lot of floral arrangements to bring in an agency. There's a very valid question of why don't I just have my junior florist take pictures and videos with what we've designed this week, and user-generated content approach with their employees. So it was actually the trade association helped us with partners in that space, like a floral tech company called Florist, where we work now. That's an ongoing relationship. They have an insurance fund and stuff. We're about to do a series of video ads.
Nice.
Anyways, so it was the more business to business side of things that is harder to visualize, and it's harder to come up with, something that's not tangible. Like, you can't take a picture, you can take a picture of someone in a class being educated, but it doesn't tell the whole story compared to here's the product I have. If you like the looks of it, you're going to buy it. That's a much easier message to push in the conversion and sales cycle. You see it, you like it, you get it, or you don't. Also, it's a lower ticket. We work with companies that have high value or high dollar services. They need help telling the story or visualizing it, whether that's video or graphic, putting it into a digestible way. It's super important to understand how their audience perceives their service and the value. I went to the Marston convention. They had some great speakers there, and one of the speakers had worked for a major beauty product. He didn't name them, but something like L'Oreal or of that ilk, like really really big. And it resonated deeply with me. Back in the 90s, they thought the people buying their makeup were young women looking out to go on a night out, like 19 to 25. So their demographic of who they brought in to represent those people in their advertisement and in their creative were all models. They had this presumed assumption for a couple decades. I wish I remember the speaker's name. Maybe
Put it in the show notes.
I'll send that to you. I'll go back. He worked with them, did some customer research, and found out that the actual demographic of buying it was women 30 to 35 plus who were starting to feel like they might not have been as good looking as they were in their 20s or whatever when they were a bit
Mhm.
younger. And they were trying to preserve that youth through these products. And so they didn't relate to seeing a 20-year-old model advertising their makeup. As soon as they started including those, and you see this in the way that even if you're not looking closely, you see how the beauty industry has encapsulated all sizes, all figures, inclusive of everyone. And that is a big part because of that shift of looking like not understanding their market. And this is like these are massive companies. They're making billions and have a fundamental misunderstanding of who's buying their product. And that was crazy to me because it's one thing to say, your local or regional whatever software service provider doesn't understand that. But for a company that has the resources and depth of talent within them to not understand that made me realize, okay, there's a real market here. If I can use this example to sell our service, do you know who your customers really are? We'll find out who it is, what resonates with them, and give you messaging that is going to really help them. And we've done that through influencer marketing campaigns. We've done that through podcasts. I was talking about, before we started recording, we helped a company out in New York put together a podcast. And so understanding how your audience perceives your products or your service is just, it sounds redundant, but it is something that once you have a presumed knowledge is hard to unlearn without an outside perspective coming in.
100%. I think what you just said there tied back to something a little earlier that you said where it can get tiresome or like even hit burnout when you're just saying the same thing over and over again, right?
Yeah.
But a big piece of doing this right is sometimes saying the same thing over and over. It blows my mind that in marketing, and I know I am guilty of this, we get shiny object syndrome. I'll see the new thing. I'll be like, oh wow, that's incredible. And it just might take you just far enough off your path that so much good marketing is getting back to the fundamentals like you just explained, right? Like, do you know who your customer really is, right? Like if L'Oreal, and we're not calling them out, we're not even sure that that was the brand, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a brand of that size can make that mistake, you can too. And I find so much of the stuff that we do that's effective is bringing clients back to a fundamental understanding of their marketing.
audiences change too over time, right? Like as what is true then might not be true now. So that shifts. So I think it's relevant, if things are working, don't fix it if it isn't broken. But, you know, staying in touch, having some way to communicate, not just looking at your dashboard and seeing, what your ROAS is or your click-through rate at your audience. It's very impersonal. Being able to get out in front of your customers and understand that, or even just if in a simpler way that we've done that, it's great if you have conventions and stuff and you can meet your audience in person. There's a lot of value in person, as I think as everything's got so digitized with calls, we realize that a bit more. But even just reaching out to valued customers that via their socials or whatever, and just saying like, hey, like what is the benefit that we bring to you? And we really appreciate you being a part of our growth. Why do you support us? Getting it straight from the horse's mouth is invaluable. And I think people have an aversion to it of like this sense that, oh, if we do that, we're gonna look like we don't know what we're doing. Or I might rattle the boat. If this person's a regular customer, I don't want to come to them after 5 years and say, hey, what are we doing right for you? Sometimes as agency marketers, we're able to soften that and make it. Sometimes you don't want to be the whatever. It's not good cop, bad cop. If you view asking that question as a bad, have someone
Ask it for you.
you save face, and then it ultimately there's a benefit of your customer thinking, oh look, they're trying to improve it. They've brought in some extra help to try and uncover this. A lot of people, especially today and this is probably one of the topics we're going to start to transition to within AI and generative AI, the view is, oh, everything can be done in-house, and that's we want to use AI. It's a super powerful tool. You can't just be like, nope, humans are better, and that's just like, starting to be untrue. It's a crazy shift. However, having that outside perspective of someone who understands the AI tools and make sure that they have, they're up to date on what's current and efficient, in combination with that outside perspective. An analogy I've used is, if I have Chat GPT write me up a legal contract, I'm not going to know if there are clauses missing at this point in time. And I'm not going to because I'm not a lawyer. I don't have the domain experience and knowledge of vetting that appropriately. And so similarly, if you're getting ChatGPT to write all your blog articles, or you're using Midjourney or Opus or whatever to clip up all your clips, you'll get okay to good content. I think that to take it up to that great level is where you want that, human quality assurance. You want domain expert to be reviewing that and understanding whether we're missing out in the meta titles or something like that. That's basic. And again, I'm not necessarily, I
No,
wouldn't be
no.
able to identify what's missing, but
Bring up some good points. I'm going to go back a couple of notches where you mentioned
Sure.
the companies being scared to ask their customers, "Hey, what do you like about doing business with us?" I want to go back to that because I think that is one of the most powerful things a company can do. Like if you find out why people like doing business with you, you can use that in your marketing. They're scared to ask that question. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to come off as stupid. If that's a service you offer, that it's a great service to offer because when you do get it right from the horse's mouth, and oftentimes, like, let's just be real, marketers might sit in a room together and just make assumptions, and they can be
Hmm.
wildly wrong. I've done projects where my client thinks they're with us because of X, Y, and Z, and they're like, no, I'm with you because of the quick turnaround time. The only thing I care about is that you get me an answer that day. And then they find out your competitors aren't doing that. Now you can go to the market and let your market know, like, hey, we will get back to you today. It's a very powerful thing.
Taking that into your approach for new prospects is where that comes from research to something tangible and you can see a difference in your bottom line because
Yeah.
as marketers, especially in social, you look at awareness, follows, likes. If you're doing ads or organic, you're looking at link clicks, but a lot of people stop there and don't care because as long as that top of the funnel is performing, that's the scope of what you should be delivering. If you post a picture of a dog with a computer for a tech company, it's going to get a ton of likes, reactions. Everyone loves animals.
Right.
However, it's not going to get the right audience. You're going to get animal lovers liking this post. And sure, some of them might need your software, but is that better than a post that gets 5 likes talking about your delivery route optimization feature? That's the value you add. And those 5 people all are owners of a business who have a crap delivery system right now, and that's their pain point. It's not always just about your top line figures. It's super important to understand. Yes, we are generally the first 2 sections of a funnel of awareness and interest, but making sure that you understand that's why you ask those questions of what value do you appreciate from us so you can create stuff that gets people through the funnel past that interest point of just like, oh, I'm going to save this for later to I really want to follow up. I want to engage with these people when I have time to find out if they can help my business. And if you can get that message out there, if you don't know that message, your prompt isn't going to include that. So, you know, I've been asked this question the last few years so often, especially when meeting new business, like, why wouldn't I just use AI for my content generation? It's not an either or. The strategy that goes behind generating that content you, you benefit from having someone who lives, eats, and breathes understanding marketing strategy and being able to identify and ask questions that maybe you don't want to or haven't or whatever the reasons are. But if you have someone who can help you uncover that, and then, it's not an either or, and then have us, or if you want to do it as a research project one off, then you have the information to generate it. That's great. You come from a more educated place. And I think we're seeing the value of what gets output from generated stuff. It's completely dependent on the prompts that you put to it. So,
Goes
yeah,
back to goes back to what you were saying earlier, having that domain expertise. Just typing something at the chat GPT, taking the output and running with it is just not going to work. You have to have somebody who has that domain expertise, who knows how to ask of the chat GPT, ask it in the right way, build out that prompt and have all the right things in there. It's never as simple as press a button and go. Some business owners feel like they can pull that off, but more and more I'm seeing people are like, I don't know how to use this thing. Help me figure
right.
it.
It'll be interesting to see where we are in 10 years. We're still in an infancy stage within AI. The effect of a generation growing up with this coming into the workforce is going to be interesting. Going back to me saying I'm not the best graphic designer, I have a pretty good grasp on AI tools. We've had, whatever, like 4 years of learning and understanding how to implement these. But someone's going to come along at some point who I would love to bring on my team who has a way better understanding or a way more creative approach to using these tools. And I'm eventually going to be more of a dinosaur in this space. And so what I learned with social when I was starting, going out and doing graphics and for people when I was just a freelancer, my ideal customer profile was someone who was like 40 plus, had ran a successful and established business, and social media was a new language to them. That was who I wanted to work with because they weren't going to spend the time. They didn't understand it at all. You're talking to people who don't understand those tools. That's who you want to be meeting with is the
Right.
people who need that help and they know they're going to fall behind if they don't integrate this somehow. So as a as a partner who can help bridge that gap. And again, with that domain expertise of with you within SEO, you're going to know how to craft a good article without necessarily having to spend as much as you used to have to on writers. I feel like it's a very fluid state that I have on AI. It scares me and excites me all at the same time. It
With
pretty
you.
much. And in 10 years, it'll be really interesting to see. The other thing is, and this is probably getting a bit philosophical on AI and less about agency ownership.
Let's do it.
I think we always, as humans, underestimate when we had like the car get created, right? When the first
Mhm.
cars started coming out, if you asked a stable owner who had, a stable full of horses, which had for thousands of years been what humans had used for transportation, like,
Yep.
you worried about that thing with the wheels? It would have been, well, everyone's always going to use horses.
You know?
And the Wright brothers, when they built the first plane, they viewed it as military technology. They didn't foresee sending packages across the world and Amazon delivery. We generally vastly underestimate things that profoundly change us. And I think that's part of the scary/exciting part of it. Even if you talk to the brain power behind OpenAI, I highly doubt, like going back to the Wright brothers, they can even conceive quite how fundamental a change this is going to make. We always underestimate it. What's scary is compared to the car with AI, this is sweeping across everything. It's a profound shift, and we tend to underestimate where that will lead us in 10, 20, 30 years.
I think that's a brilliant point. Kyle, we're running out of time, but I do want to make sure
Sure.
I ask you about kombucha and how a service business owner and a social media guy, like how did he get into products? Like what was the birth of that? How did that happen? I imagine your skills from marketing have been helpful in that business too. So I'd love to hear about how you use those.
My co-founder, Matt Hoff, and I were introduced through a mutual friend from college, and he is was going through he's got his finance degree and stuff now. He was going to Grand Valley in Grand Rapids, and he was pretty gung-ho about trying to start something up, and he wanted to have someone to start something up with him. He wasn't sure what it was going to be. I was getting to a point of having some autonomy. This is probably around 2020, like just before COVID happened and stuff, that we were starting to have these discussions, and we would work out at the Y here together, and we were stopping some college habits and whatever, like the nights out were starting to become a little less frequent or whatever. And we were drinking kombucha and Matt was drinking more kombucha than I was at the time as a recovery drink. He listened to a Gary Vaynerchuk podcast or clip or something. I don't know what it was, and he referenced kombucha as like a growing product and something that was in an industry that had a lot of growth, especially with trends towards NA beverages and stuff that were starting to pick up and have increased in since then. So that was kind of the tipping point for us, being well, Matt, being, to give him his credit, being like, hey, you want to start brewing kombucha with me? Like, I just heard this podcast, Gary V thinks it's a growing market. Like, and I was starting to get enough free time that I could conceive doing this. I was getting a bit sick of living behind my computer. It was a fun challenge to do something tangible and physical in the real world rather than just the internet. That was why we got started. And then we were drinking it already. So like I already had some affinity towards it as a drink. It was something I believed in. I'd seen positive effects of it for me. And 5 years later, Matt has a full-time job. I have the agency, both come first. One of the best things that we agree on is like being able to provide this as something that is, we both believe, beneficial to people, and like
Yeah.
it's helping people on a pretty fundamental level, helping people live a healthier life. And there's a lot, even though it's a labor of love, we partially self-distribute and have the full production line is with Matt and I. So that is a bit tedious at this point. When we get busy, we can have people help us out, but no one's full time, managing that operation side of stuff for us. That's the why. I mean, that's like, why do I want to go spend my time doing that instead of, spending more time prospecting on my laptop? It's like, well, because this is impacting the people I live around and stuff in a healthy and positive way. And then just quickly, yeah, my marketing background helped us get like, we saved a ton of cost on the startup of like the logo, labeling, branding, the website, all of that we're able to do for like next to nothing, minus the running costs of those, for the website in particular. But and then obviously like the price of the labels, but not having someone come and design it. We were able to get up and running with that and leverage both of our expertise. So Matt does a lot of the bookkeeping stuff and stuff like that with his finance background.
I love that. And
Yeah.
couldn't agree with you more, man. I can't tell you how many days I'm like, I just got to get out from behind my, I got my, this is my standing desk over here because sometimes I just have to stand up and work. In building this, I didn't realize how much sitting I was going to be doing. And, I know there's the big, sitting is the new smoking. And it's true. It's definitely something I'm aware of. I'm glad you're getting out and making kombucha.
Sitting, especially as everything got digitized, the work from home culture inflated that. I used to meet my clients every month. Going back to what you deliver outside the contract was in-person meetings. Like that was valuable. People lost interest in that in the last few years. Like people were like, can we just do a Zoom call instead? So we just shifted everything. I go in person a couple of times a year.
I think it goes back to your point earlier to like not really recognizing the impact that something's going to have. And we clearly don't see it with AI, but I think we don't really see the full picture and the full impact from COVID and work from home either. Because
Right.
as easy as it is to be like, let's just do a Zoom, I'm busy. Having to get out in the world and meet people is something that's good for all of us, right? So the fact that we're now in a position where we can just blow it off is probably not best for our mental health.
It's not how we as a species are designed to operate. I agree with you. I think that's true with social media too. When we first had social media, the immediate benefit was like, I'm never going to lose touch with any of my friends again. I have them all forever on these platforms.
Mhm.
Then years later, you look like, and you're like, oh man, people spend a ton of time scrolling through. And it actually, there's a strong argument that it actually is an antisocial outcome that occurs. Hindsight's 2020. The obvious summation of that being like, okay, when we look back and see what happened, it's a lot more clear to see the balance. There's a great benefit to all of this. It empowers us. It makes it easier to connect with people, but also it like reduces some of that meaningful connection that we have in day-to-day life. So yeah, I think that was another thing about like just the why for doing something different other than just marketing behind the computer. I greatly enjoy succeeding with our clients and partners, but it's impersonal. It's personal with my point of contact within the company,
Right.
but it's not the same. Summertime's great. We go out and I'm sure someone else thinks this is a terrible way to spend the day, but if we're at a farmer's market for 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday, it's bright and sunny, meeting a couple hundred people who live around us and seeing them be like, "Oh, this is great. It's cool what you guys are doing," and people who appreciate our product. It's a really nice polarization from my 9 to 5 work week.
I love it. Your passion project is an opportunity to recreate, re-energize yourself and get ready for
Yeah,
the
I like that way of phrasing it. It does re-energize me for the week ahead. You hit the nail on the head with that.
love it. I appreciate you jumping on today, man. Thank you so much. You shared so much valuable stuff. I'm definitely going to include some show notes. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, my LinkedIn is Kyle Manning. If anyone wants to connect directly with me, it's On Point Marketing on all socials. Our website is marketingonpoint.org.
Just iterate and iterate. So I love it. Kyle, thank you so much again. Appreciate it and have a great day.